Hello and welcome to the first episode of a new show we are doing. Welcome to Lost in Adaptation, where we talk about books, movies, and TV shows and how they're sometimes not great when they're compared. I'm Reed, I'm one of your hosts. This is Caddy.
Hi.
And Nico.
What's up?
And today we're going to be talking about a series that I really, really like, and I have for a while, and Nico actually was the one who introduced me to. We're talking about Mortal Instruments. So, what do you guys think? Do you guys like this series, or how much do you like this series?
I started reading it when I was in, I think it was grade 8 was when I picked up City of Bones. And honestly, I put it down after, the first 2 chapters, and then, a month later I picked it up again, and I really enjoyed it at first. At first, I really enjoyed it. Didn't really like the last few books, and now the first and second book are my favorite books to read.
I really liked the series. I started it midway through university, and it totally hooked me. It took up all my time where I wasn't working to crush through the series, so I was very much a fan of it. There are some things that I didn't like that I think are probably pretty universal, but overall, I really loved the series.
And thankfully, we'll probably get to all the things you didn't like today. See, I think I had probably the worst introduction out of all of us to this series, because my introduction was actually, and I don't want to start riffing on it right away, but the really bad mid-2000s movie was my first introduction to the Mortal Instruments series, and that's all I thought of for years.
Oh no.
Until only 3 or 4 years ago when Nico introduced me to the books. That was probably
Yeah, that sounds about right, yeah.
Yeah, and I was immediately hooked once I read the first book when I realized it was significantly better than the movie. And
Yeah.
I powered through the first 6 books. Or I guess it's the 6 books for the Mortal Instruments series. Not kind of
and then it kind of
spin-offs
branches.
and stuff. Yeah. So I guess we could start with the books, because I think I'm probably not making an improper assumption saying we all prefer the books the most.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely, personally, I preferred the books more than the TV series and the movie. I like the TV series, but I don't know, it's just the way that I describe the books to my friends is it is young adult urban fantasy comfort food, because it's just it's got everything in it, and you can just, whenever you're in the mood to read something like contemporary fantasy or urban fantasy, it is just such a good book to lean back on, because it really does have so many things all tied into one story.
It's such a
Great point.
Yeah, it's such a familiar idea and executed in a not predictable but kind of just comfortably familiar way. Exactly.
Comfort food.
I actually kind of use that same phrase to describe the show, because I think of the show as just a guilty pleasure that isn't a guilty pleasure, because it's just you go in and you know what you're gonna get. You're gonna get some young adult angsty hijinks with the backdrop of urban fantasy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't go there for Game of Thrones level plot twists. I go there to see relatively good looking young actors and actresses kicking ass against pretty decent CGI demons.
Yeah, and honestly,
Yeah,
if we're gonna compare it to any theme that is also in Game of Thrones, the one that sticks out in my mind, and I know that you two are definitely also thinking about it, is the weird incest that's in it.
Oh! Yeah, what?
Oh!
Why?
Oh my
Yeah.
god! I was actually talking to my fiance about this the other day when I had the idea to make the first episode about Mortal Instruments. I just kept we were talking about the book series, but I kept picturing the scene from the show where it's Alec and Jace having a heart-to-heart and restoring their parabatai kind of camaraderie, and they're talking about Clary, And Jace is making this whole heartfelt, like, oh, I loved her and I wanted her, but I learned she was my sister, and I had these conflicting feelings, and it's supposed to be really serious, but I can't watch that scene without laughing.
You know what? I can't. Oh, I can't do the scene where Clary has to kiss the person she wants to kiss most. So she kisses her boyfriend, Simon. Nothing happens. So she kisses her brother. Girl.
Yeah. It was awful.
It's such a cringe. Okay, we should probably admit, the early bits of the show were pretty rough.
Oh, yeah.
Because I think they were trying to stick closer to the books. And eventually they kind of just said, screw it. We're gonna basically do our own thing. And then it got really good.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, that's unfortunate that they had to veer off from the storyline to get better, but I really did appreciate the changes that they made in the TV show.
Yeah. Some of them were really necessary because, obviously, if you haven't read the books but you're listening to this for some reason, maybe you were watching the show and this came up in your recommended feed. The characters are significantly younger in the books. We should probably point that out. That in the movie and the show, they're implied to be, what, like 17 and 18?
Well, in the book, it's like her 15th or 16th birthday, right?
I think it's her 15th birthday.
It's her, yeah, and in the TV show, it's her 18th.
Yeah. Which makes sense. I mean, it can make sense from a story perspective, like, oh, you're an adult now, so, like, your powers are manifesting or something, or, you know, it's time for you to learn. You turned 18 now.
Mm-hmm. And I think the big thing in the... I can't remember the movie, if it was in the movie as well, but, like, in the TV show, there was a big emphasis on, yeah, she's 18. That's why her, the curse that Magnus put over her, like, to take away her memories is, like, fading away.
Off. Yeah.
Yeah. And, like, I think they put more emphasis on the TV show that it's because she's aging. But I think, if I remember correctly, in the book, it's more... oh, it's because Magnus cast that so long ago, like, it's starting to fade, like, it just fades over time, kind of thing, but...
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They do address that in the show, because I rewatched a few kind of scenes and episodes just to get ready for this, but it's implied that she needs constant kind of treatment from Magnus in the show to keep the memories at bay.
Yeah.
And because her mom disappears and she can't get them, her memories start coming back, and eventually... she's like, I don't want them gone, and obviously the whole show happens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I don't actually remember, cause I couldn't sit through the movie. I tried getting ready.
2 hours long.
It's also, I realized this when I was thinking about rewatching it, that it's one of those, like, kind of forgotten movies that no one really seems to care about because the whole thing is on YouTube.
Oh,
like, my god.
Unedited in one piece on YouTube in, like, high quality, and nobody involved seems to care.
And, like, the title is probably, like, Mortal Instruments free movie online.
No, it's literally, I think, called Mortal Instruments City of Bones, and then I think the year.
Ugh.
Like, it's not hidden in any way. It's like, hey, I put your multi-million-dollar blockbuster on YouTube. Why do you not care?
That's how badly people don't want it acknowledged.
That's how badly people don't care about this movie.
Honestly, I can't even remember. Like, I think the last time I remember seeing anything about that movie, until Reed had asked me to come on and do this or whatever, was I saw an article about how the Chinese guy that played Magnus in the movie, I feel bad because I can't remember his name, but he apparently, like, passed away during filming of another movie. Like, he collapsed on set. Yeah, so that was the last thing that I remember hearing about the movie, because he was mentioned, like, oh yeah, he was in the City of Bones or whatever.
Godfrey Gao.
Yes, that was his name, yes.
Mm-hmm.
That's another thing. Because I watched some of the scenes with him, because Magnus is one of my favorite characters, and I wanted to remind myself, like, how he was portrayed. He's actually not... It's not a bad portrayal of what I imagine of Magnus in the movie.
Honestly, the first scene where he walks out and he's in a blazer and boxers, I was like, yeah, that seems like something he would wear.
But if you listen to him in the movie and watch him talk, it sounds and looks like he's dubbed for some reason. Like, his mouth doesn't quite match what he's saying. It's almost like his mic messed up during the take and they had to re-record him. Like, it's so weird. Like, it's just that little
It makes me
bit
want to go
off.
back and rewatch, but I don't want to put myself through that again.
Because he's really... Him and Robert Sheehan, who played Simon in the movie, are the only two I really feel like were well cast.
I like Jace's casting, but that's because he was hot.
Looks-wise, the guy who played Jace, I think his name was Jamie Campbell something. He's not bad. For looks, he's not bad. What's with their accents in that movie?
They were weird.
Because it's not implied. I don't remember in the books it ever being implied that they have an accent. Because they basically grew up in New York.
Well, because like they grew up in that other little country, like
Idris, I think it was called. Idris.
Yeah, Idris. Yeah. So yeah, like it's not honestly the only reason I remember that is because of Idris Elba. But yeah, so it's not implied that they have an accent or anything, and that's the other thing. Not everyone from there has the same kind of accent, which is another weird thing. It's like, okay, let's take all the important people and give them accents, but they're all going to have different accents.
Yeah, you listen to Jace, Alec, and Isabel talk, they all sound like they are from different Eastern European countries.
Yeah, I will say I don't know, I liked the movie Jocelyn a little bit better than TV show Jocelyn, I think.
I feel like she was more badass in the movie than she was in the show.
Yeah, like in the show, she kind of made me think of like, oh, I'm too old for this shit. Like, just oh, I can't do this anymore. But in the movie, like, she jumps up and she fights.
It doesn't hurt that movie Jocelyn is Cersei Lannister.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Like,
I think, you know what, honestly,
yeah, it's Lena Headey. I had forgotten that until this.
Oh my god.
It's a I think, Game of Thrones Lena Headey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Damn.
Also, this movie is not as old as I thought it was. It was 2013.
Oh my god.
Yeah. Because they had initially set up, like, after the first one, or maybe it was during the end of the filming of the first one, like, they had set up a second movie. They were like, yeah, this is going to be a series.
Yeah.
And then it did so bad in the box office, they were like, okay, yeah, sorry, get out of here. They had some good people lined up for the next movie, too. I want to say, for some reason, Sigourney Weaver, but I'm probably wrong on that. But, like, I remember reading this, like, they had some good people set up for the next movie, and then it just was so bad that you were like, yeah, we're gonna let you go.
Well, I think the reason they were so desperate to try and get, like, a series out of this came out a year after the first Hunger Games movie.
Exactly.
And this was another company being like, okay, we need to make our own big budget young adult franchise of good-looking teenage protagonists getting into crazy hijinks.
I'm pretty sure that, like, didn't Divergent come out right after this?
Divergent, I think, was like 2014 or 2015. I'll check that.
That was rough.
2014, a year later, was Divergent.
Yeah. I remember that because I remember I got into reading Mortal Instruments and I was like, should I read Divergent? Nah. And I never read it. And to this day, I still haven't read it.
Don't.
That's what I've heard. Everyone tells me don't.
I will say, they somehow end up as popcorn books. Like, there's nothing to them, but you won't get negative enjoyment out of reading them, but you won't really get anything out of it either.
Basically what I've heard is if you've read The Hunger Games, you've also read Divergent.
That's pretty much it. It's right down to it, like, being like the outcast kind of girl,
like
who feels
Maze Runner.
Maze Runner's another one.
It's the love child of Maze Runner and Hunger Games.
This point was like they had made Hunger Games and it's surprisingly worked probably because of a lot of it because of the like really good casting of like was it Jennifer Lawrence and who's the guy?
Josh Hutcherson.
Josh Hutcherson and Woody
the hot
Harrelson.
Thor's brother.
Luke Hemsworth. Is it Luke or Liam Hemsworth?
Liam.
Liam
He was
Hemsworth.
one of, yeah. Who was the guy that played Kato?
Oh, he's in Vikings.
Yeah, I remember Alexander Ludwig. That's his name. I remember. I used to think that he should have been PETA.
Hmm.
I don't remember
Because
who
he's
that
got the
character
blonde
is.
hair. He was also in what movies was I don't know. I remember just as a kid I had a huge crush on him. And then then I found out they were making Hunger Games and I was so excited for him because I heard he was in it. I thought he was going to be PETA and no, he's the bad guy. Yeah,
Well, it makes sense because Josh is just so soft looking. He's
love him
got to be
too.
the baker.
He's
Oh
sympathetic.
yes. It's got baker hands.
But the other thing with like the fact that they kept trying to make these like young adult movies in this era is I think the reason this didn't quite work is they did something the TV show did well, they just did it badly, is they aged up all the characters but didn't seem to really acknowledge that in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
They're still running around and acting like 15-year-olds, but it's clearly actors who were in their 20s.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And that goes
And
for
that's-
so many different TV
That's-
shows nowadays.
yeah.
Like, yeah.
Like,
yeah, that's mainly to allow for some spiciness without legal repercussions.
and to like put your actors through like stunts and grueling schedules without dealing with like child actors guilds and legal repercussions, and it's a necessary thing for adapting a lot of stuff, but you need to go farther than just putting a 22-year-old in a role built for a 15-year-old. You need to adjust the role in some way.
Well, and like even when it comes to like if we're gonna talk about changing characters and stuff, like in the movie, Clary's hair was like a auburny brunette. Like,
Yeah.
It wasn't red or carrot red or
It's supposed to be
orange or
red.
anything.
That's like a big thing of her look, is she's like a carrot top.
Yeah, and like in the TV show, I was like, oh my god, her hair is so beautiful. But to me, it just, I don't know, it made me uncomfortable in a weird way. It was like they're trying too hard to be like, look, she's got red hair. It's weird.
It's
like
like
the anime
the
character
show.
that's got pink hair. Like that's just what I got off of that.
I think the show was like desperately aware of how soured the market was for a Mortal Instruments adaptation because of this movie, that they really wanted to do things right and do things in like a visual way that would make fans happy. And I think that's part of the reason why it isn't called it like the first isn't Mortal Instruments, it's Shadowhunters. I think Mortal Instruments, or is it just called Shadowhunters?
The TV show is called Shadowhunters.
Yeah, it's just called Shadowhunters. And I think that's the reason they didn't use the Mortal Instruments title, is because they didn't want people to instantly remember this movie
Yes.
and compare it and be like, oh, if it's going to be like this, I'm not going to watch it.
Oh, you know what scene drove me absolutely nuts in that movie?
Oh,
And Reed, I don't know if you saw it because I think you said that you didn't finish the movie.
I've finished it before. I've watched this movie twice in my life. I couldn't finish the rewatch for this podcast.
Oh, that's okay. But the scene at the end where they're like getting attacked by the demons and Clary's like, open the door. And they open the door and then she like turns them all to stone or like freezes them for a bit. And she like keeps her hand up and they're just like gingerly walking around them, like not to touch them, and then they wait. Like, why wouldn't you just chop their heads off?
Yeah, I was like, why'd you went there just stabbing them?
Yeah, like why you gotta tiptoe around them? Like, is everybody in place? You good? You good? Okay.
There's a scene similar to that in a show I used to watch called Stargate.
Oh yeah.
But there's a pretty similar scene where the main characters are in a bunch of different places and they're all being attacked by robots called replicators. And the exact same thing happens. One of the characters heroically manages to just freeze all the bad guys in place to buy them time because they're trying to finish a MacGuffin to make the plot go forward. I won't say anything specific in case people haven't seen Stargate, but you can very clearly see the two different characters and how they act, because one character is like, oh, they're frozen, we have time to work. The other character is stuck in a hallway with these things approaching. They stop moving. They stop shooting for a second, look at each other, and then keep shooting the whole time they're frozen because they're not moving. And that's when I first saw this, because that scene is older than this movie. I thought of that during this. I'm like, you have, like, knives. Why aren't you walking up and just stabbing them in the face while they're frozen and can't move? Like, you know they're just going to follow you when they come back to life. I couldn't handle the ending scene where they're on, like, the motorcycle and are, like, right off into the sunset. And they're all like, I don't think it's true. I don't think he's telling the truth. That we're, like, related and stuff. And we're going to find the truth. And I'm like, shouldn't you go off the assumption that is true for now?
Yeah.
Like, wouldn't it be way better to assume and have it proven wrong later and not have regrets?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Huh.
Because, like, spoiler alert for this whole kind of book series. I know we've said a couple things so far, but if you want to read the series, don't go further. Come back when you're done. 'Cause I'm about to say something that will wreck the whole series for you if you know it pretty much. So you've been warned. But obviously they couldn't get to this in the movie, but we all eventually know they're not related.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah.
Like,
thank goodness. We didn't know at first.
It's a bit of gymnastics figuring out who everybody is, but... Because... What? Jace is like 3 different people at various points.
Yeah, like, yeah.
We think he's...
Jonathan?
We think he's Jonathan Christopher Whalen at one point.
Yeah.
Then we think he's Jonathan Christopher Morgenstern.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's eventually revealed to be, I think his name is Stephen Lightwood? Or not Lightwood, Herondal.
Mm-hmm.
But I think he ends up going by Jace Herondal, is like the name he finally settles
Yeah,
on.
Jace Herondal, yeah.
Yeah, that's, I think, because Clary gives him the old Herondal ring in Heavenly Fire, I think? At the wedding, I think, at Clary's mom's wedding. They're like having the big, like, you know, everything's settled, we're finally, like, it's finally peace, and she gives him, like, I forget where she got it, but she has, like, a really old Herondal ring, I think from Luke's sister, maybe? And it's like, yeah, I can finally have, like, a proper name, and I know who my, like, family is.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I fully think the author decided partway through that series to make them not related and came up with a way to do that.
Well, you know what actually is really interesting? When I was doing research for this podcast, I found out that one of the reasons why Cassandra Clare became a recognized author was because she wrote a lot of Harry Potter and Lord of the Ring fan fiction.
Mm-hmm.
And
Really?
they actually think that there's a rumor that the Mortal Instruments is actually based off of her Harry Potter fiction, and that's why their steles or whatever are very similar to wands, right?
Oh yeah.
And also why their cathedral mansion thing that they stay in can't be seen, the veil, very similar to how Hogwarts is sealed away or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But also in almost all of her fan fictions, there is also weird incest things. And another thing in them is eating disorder, lots of talk about eating disorders, about how the female characters just don't eat. And do you remember in the first book where, or maybe it's the second one, where Dorothea and Clary are sitting there and they're eating cucumber sandwiches, and then Clary starts thinking about Isabel's skinny body, and then she doesn't eat, and I swear she doesn't eat for the rest of the books. There is never ever an inclination, a scene that talks about her eating.
I remember that scene now, reading that and thinking this is a horrible message to send.
It is a cucumber sandwich. Are you kidding me? That's got
it's a sandwich that half of it is water.
Yeah. Get over yourself. Come on.
I think I remember there's a scene the one other scene I can think of where Clay actually eats something is they're at Luke's house. It's her, Simon, and Luke. I think this is book 2. Because it's just before, it's the one where Jace goes to the boat full of monsters. Mm-hmm. And they order pizza, and I remember it describing it as Luke eats 2 pieces, Claire gets about halfway through one, and Simon eats 5. I just found that scene really funny. Because she's like, oh, I wasn't very hungry, and I'm like... And I remember thinking back, like, you haven't eaten, like, 2 days.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You've been on the run for, like, 2 days.
Yeah, and another thing, like, yeah, they never really eat, and, like, here's the thing. You guys are, like, these badass, like, modern-day warrior people. You need to eat. Like, you cannot...
You should be eating constantly. Like, you should be starving.
Yeah, like, if anything, like, if... I don't know. Yeah,
I think maybe at some point in the books they say, like, their metabolism is enhanced or something like that.
Angel metabolism.
Angel metabolism. Okay, that is... You mentioned the Institute a while ago, which is their big kind of gothic cathedral play. I will say something. I liked the way the Institute was portrayed in the movie more than the show.
Me too. I can agree with that.
Because it's implied to be this grand gothic cathedral. I'm pretty sure it's based on like a real, I think, gothic cathedral in New York. It's just implied that Mundane Seed is run down and old, but it's actually kind of in good shape.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it's also said they're the only ones currently living there, because it's implied that there's not, on the grand scale of things, a lot of shadow hunters left.
No, there's like a couple hundred of them that live in this mansion thing, right?
Yeah, and come and go. And most stay in Idris.
Yeah, it's like their headquarters when they're not in Idris.
I think it's like, where is New York? The East Coast?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like their East Coast U.S. headquarters is the New York Institute. And they're usually, the 3 kids and Hodge are the only ones usually there. And that comes across in the movie. It's this huge place, huge cavernous halls, but you only run into the 4 of them. But in the show, they're like a full-on army. Like, there's dozens of people at the Institute all the time.
Yeah.
And part of that is I think the show needed, like, for lack of a better term, they needed red shirts for fight scenes. So they needed the Institute to be fully stocked at all times.
Yeah, that's fair.
Because, like, there's a scene in the show where Valentine convinces, like, the warlock little girl to help him attack the Institute with her, like, weird powers of sucking the air out of rooms. It's weird. She somehow sucks all the air out of a not sealed room. But it's implied they lost dozens of shadow hunters in that attack. I don't think we see dozens of shadow hunters for, like, the first 4 books.
Yeah, exactly.
We meet, like, a grand total of, like, 10.
Yeah.
Counting, like, Jocelyn.
Who, like, let's be real, like...
Isn't a shadow hunter.
Yeah.
But no, there's constantly, like, generic mook shadow hunters in the show who are there just to get killed. Because I guess it's cheaper to have extras than it is to create CGI creatures.
Yeah, it probably is.
And on that note, the movie and show were both obsessed with Valentine having a ton of evil shadow hunters that work for him.
An unreal amount.
Yeah, because he was supposed to have literally like a small circle, like little group.
He had he had the circle, most of whom were arrested or killed before the books start, and he had a couple loyalists. Like, he had Prangborn or whatever his name was, and the one who I think both die in City of Bones. And that was really it for shadow hunters on his side. Then it was all working with demons and being submissive and trying to like at one point he, I think, makes a bunch of that's the show I'm thinking of, where he tries to like make new dark shadow hunters. Because his whole thing for a while was, our race is dying, we need to make more of us. Because there wasn't a lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
And he says he has that same motivation in the show, but you don't really get the sense there's not a lot of them.
Yeah, and, like, I feel like they really have a hard, like, I don't know, in the TV show at least, like, because I liked Valentine. I do. Like, I have a thing for the bad guys. Like, I do enjoy, like, delving into their purpose. And Valentine's purpose, like, he started the Circle, like, to protect against, like, corruption and against, like, the Clave and against the Accords and everything. And, yeah, like, he wanted to make more shadow hunters, right? And I feel like they don't get that point across in the TV show at all. Like, they're just like, yeah, he's a bad guy and he wants to make a bad army.
He's way more of just a villain in the show.
Like, he is trying to protect, like, I don't know, he, in his mind, in his own weird way, like, he really does hate the Clave and all of their corrupt, like, things that they do, and he is, like, basically one of the only people to really stand up to them with a real cause behind it. But again, they don't really go into that in the TV show, so he's just seen as the mean bad guy.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, he's also way more of a physical threat in the show than he is in the books, because he himself doesn't do much.
Other than, like, experimenting on, like, Celine and stuff, like, and then Jocelyn, like, other than experimenting, yeah, you're right.
He's not the one out there doing, like, the fighting and stuff. Because he's implied to be, he's at least as old as Clary's mom, or older than Clary's mom, I think.
Like, honestly, he is more of a, like, obviously, he's got some mental things going on, like, the fact that, yeah, like, he killed Wayland, and, like, pretends to be him for, like, 9 years and raises 2 different boys at different houses. Like, that is some messed up stuff, buddy.
That's the other thing. Like, he's actually implied to be a decent dad to the real Jonathan Christopher Morgenstern in the books. Like, he's not implied to be a monster. But in the show, he sent his son to hell. Sorry, go ahead.
Did I cut out?
A little bit, I think.
Oh, okay, we're good now. Okay.
Go ahead.
I can't remember if it's at, I think it's in City of Ashes, where, what is it? When Valentine, like, kills Simon, remember? Like, and then Jace, so, I lost my train of thought, so never mind, I'll get back to that later. Sorry about that.
But because, like, it's implied he's just going back and forth between houses, raising the 2 different Jonathan Christophers.
Yeah.
But I guess they didn't want to really deal with that in the show, so it's like, oh, actually, I sent my one kid to hell when I realized he was, like, dangerous. So he was tortured in hell for 20 years. Like,
convenient method for getting rid of children.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of leads into another thing that I was surprised was changed book to show. 2 things, actually. The main one is how Jonathan Christopher Morgenstern is portrayed, where in the books it's just no one has met Sebastian Verloc before, or hasn't for a very, very long time. So he just goes up, says he's him, and they're all like, alright, cool. And, you know, I haven't met you before, so I don't know what to expect.
Sounds about right.
They only figure out, really, because they find a photo of him and it's like, oh, that's clearly not the dude we were talking to. But in the show, it's straight up, he's like a shapeshifter.
Yeah.
He can, like, and it's not that he's projecting like a field. His skin must feel normal, because people grab his hand and stuff at different points, so he must not feel like a scarred, burnt monster. It must feel like real flesh. Which is, what's the point? Why go through that? You're only making work for yourself when you have to make him look like the scarred, burnt monster.
Yeah.
Why not just say he looks like that? And just have someone else play Sebastian Verloc. And the other thing that I was really surprised that the books did more maturely than the show, which has older characters and like a more mature kind of style, is Max.
Oh my gosh, Max.
Oh.
Because I'm guessing you both have seen most, if not all, of the show.
Mhm.
I only haven't seen the second half of the last season that just came out. Just because it came out during school, and I haven't had a chance to sit down and watch it yet. But I'm definitely going to, because I've been waiting for it for a while. But, like, obviously I know what's going to happen, because I've read the books. But I got to the scene in the show where, like, Max figures out what's going on, and I'm like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. And then he just, like, knocks him out and feels bad and leaves. And I'm like, wait, what? The, like, edgier, darker show isn't gonna go there? The, like,
That was
the
rather
young
surprising.
adult novel went there.
Yeah, I remember being really upset. Like, this is gonna sound so bad, but yeah, like, in the books, I felt like it was more, I don't know, it just felt more real in the books as opposed to the TV series. Like, because it was tragic, regardless. But, I don't know, it just, again, and that's something that gets lost in adaptation.
Yeah.
I guess. But
And it was like,
I don't know, it just didn't feel right to me. I don't know.
It gave the fight a real consequence.
Yes,
Like,
that's a good point.
We lost something during all this.
I mean, yeah, because up to this point, like, the worst thing that had been lost was the fact that Clary and Jace can't bump uglies anymore because they might be brother and sister.
And, like, Simon got turned into a vampire, which he doesn't actually seem that cracked up about in the show.
Honestly, they made more of a big deal about him being turned into a rat than they did about him being turned into a vampire.
Yeah.
They did. Like, in the TV show, at least, yeah.
Okay, you mentioned bumping uglies. I gotta bring this up.
Oh.
Books make a big deal that, obviously, they're coming-of-age novels, so, like, Clary and Jace wanting to, like, you know, do is a big plot point and, like, a big decision. But, and when she, like, dates Simon temporarily, it's really like, oh, maybe these feelings I'm feeling, maybe, like, Simon is also someone I can, like, be with and think about for the future. But then, in the show, they bang on, like, their second date.
Yep.
Like, friends since childhood, like, hey, I kind of like you. You want to go back to my boathouse and bang? Because it's like, they end one episode with the big dramatic, like, hey, I actually love you. And I think the next episode opens on them waking up together.
Probably, honestly.
And then there's, like, a whole scene between Luke, who I really like the casting of Luke in the show. I think he's really good. I
liked TV show Luke more than movie Luke and book Luke, honestly.
Same.
He does more.
In the book, he just seems like he's, like, I don't know, in the book, it's almost like, oh, here's a really good male character, but we don't want to make him too strong, because we need to make sure that we have enough, we need to make sure we have more female strong leads than we do male strong leads. Like, that's a vibe that I got from Luke in the book, honestly. He had so much potential. Like, he's a badass. He is. But in the book, like, I feel like he barely really did anything. But in the TV show, he does a lot.
I think that is partly true, but I think it's also that they didn't want to make the adult characters too
that's such a good point.
Good and central, because they need the younger characters to be the, like, to believe they're the only ones that can accomplish this.
Yes, the young adult fantasy, whatever. Yeah.
If you introduce too many competent, good adults, everyone's gonna be reading the book thinking, why are we letting the 15-year-olds handle this?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, like, there's a whole scene in, like, the diner of all the werewolves in the show where Luke is, like, concerned, like, hey, you're a vampire, you're being safe with Clary, and it's meant to be funny because Simon misunderstands what he means by you're being safe and, like, bumbles his way through the we're being safe with sex talk. And, like, I didn't think I could get people pregnant, I'm technically dead. And Luke is cringing, and I think the whole audience is cringing at that point.
Oh, yeah.
'Cause it's not funny.
No.
It's funny to think about, but it's not funny when it's happening. At least not as funny as I think the show thought it would be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But, like, that's the other thing with, like, strong, for lack of a term, strong male characters, which there are. There's Jace and Alec and Simon and Jonathan for, you know, for the sake of just, like, statistics, Jonathan is a really well-written male character.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I think the show didn't want too many adult Shadowhunter competent good guys, because their dad isn't, like, Alec and Isabel's dad is in the books. Like, he's implied to just be a Shadowhunter who I think is on, like pretty high ranking.
Yeah, and there's another part that they kind of touch on about how, like, why the Shadowhunter numbers are down so much. It's because a lot of them were killed and, like, slaughtered and all that kind of stuff. So I think, yeah, like, they're trying to, I feel like, at least in the book, there's a huge emphasis on, like, this is the new, like, generation kind of thing.
And it's like the first generation growing up.
Yeah, it's like the first,
they
yeah, the
lost a
first
lot of their
generation
number.
are like, yeah, exactly.
But then their dad, their parents randomly get, like, a divorce in the show.
Yeah, honestly, I feel like that was just filler drama for the sake
Yeah.
of having filler. Like, I don't know. I feel like in the books, there is a lot of, they went to the institute, and then Clary realized she forgot something at her apartment, so she goes back to the apartment, and then they go to Simon's, and then they go back to the institute, and then they have to go back to Simon's because she forgot her backpack. Like, just put everything in your backpack, girl.
Alright, make a list, tape it to the door, you go to the door, you check the list.
Exactly.
You have
Yeah, like,
everything that could be vitally important to save your life.
yeah, and, like, later on, like, I had said earlier on that I had a hard time with the last few books, and honestly, I think it's because there was so much, okay, like, we're in Idris, we need to go back, oh, we gotta go back to Idris now, oh shit, we gotta go back to, like, New York, like, there was just so much jumping around, and I was like, okay, like, a cutscene is fine, I don't need to know about how they walked through the park again. You know?
Once again
Yeah.
traveled.
Yeah, she looked at that park bench that she has seen like 728 times. Like, okay,
It's like, okay,
Cassandra,
yeah.
move on.
We've also seen it 700 times at this point.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that was just, and that's just a writing thing for Cassandra Clare. Like, that's
how she
that's
writes.
that's just a writing thing, I guess. Yeah, but that is something that drives me nuts when I read a book and it's just talking about how they're getting from point A to point B.
Because, like, she implies that a lot of stuff happens in no time flat.
Mm-hmm.
The whole Mortal Instruments book series is over a span of, like, 3 months. Because I'm pretty sure it's just, like, summer vacation between, like, 10th and 11th grade or something.
Yeah, because she was taking classes for art or whatever and applying for all these art schools. Yeah,
Or maybe
and
it's
it was summer
11th
break.
and 12th grade.
Yeah,
But, like, it's between 2 high school grades, because City of Heavenly Fire, I think, is the 6th one. That ends with them, like, seeing Simon, like, on the first week of school.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like, it's back to school.
It's, like, back to school season. And I guess did they ever state if they wiped everyone's memory of Clary?
Mm,
Was
I don't
that
think they did.
Because
Simon, didn't they?
Well, Simon lost his memory because when he gave up his vampirism to Magnus's dad, whose name escapes me. But they're like, yeah, you can take my immortal soul, and I'm going to take your memories as payment for getting you out of the, like, dark dimension or whatever it was called.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, okay, he won't remember anything, and he doesn't remember Clary at all, and he altered his memory so he never had, like, a best friend growing up, which I guess he just remembers having a very lonely childhood, because it's kind of implied they're each other's only friends.
Yeah. That gutted me. When I read it, I thought, oh! They were best friends.
But, like, she's watching him at school. Like, it's her, I think Isabel and Magnus are like, okay, there he is. And I'm guessing most of them probably can't see them, I guess, because they're mundanes and they are probably hidden. But does no one else at the school remember Clary? Did no one go up to Simon and be like, hey, Clary left her hairbrush at my house like a few weeks ago. Have you seen her around? He's like, who?
Yeah, who?
Wouldn't her, like, picture be in the yearbook? And, like, on the school wall somewhere from some club?
Yeah, and, like, there are so many loose ends that are not tied up. Like, for example, like, it is, like, in the first, like, 3 chapters of the very first book, there's a lot of emphasis about how, like, Clary and her family, Clary and her mom, like, know Luke and basically the entire police department. Okay, well, why doesn't the police department, like, get more involved? Like, because, like, there are so many loose ends that need to be tied because they leave so many plot holes. And the human police, like, they have, like, I'm speechless.
Also,
I'm speechless.
It's been a long time since I read book 1. Is Luke a cop?
Yeah.
He's not in the books.
Yes.
No. He owns a bookstore.
Oh, man, he's a cop.
Wait.
Because remember, Clary, after the pandemonium thing, and she comes home, and she's with her mom, and then her mom gets attacked, so then Clary goes to run to the police station, so she gets to the police station, and she can hear Luke talking with these 2 circle members, and Luke is like, yeah, they don't mean nothing to me. And then Clary's like, oh my god, Luke doesn't even care about us. But then, like, he was just saying that to throw them off.
I remember now.
Yeah. I feel like if she's gonna have all of these things happen in, like, the mundane world and stuff, that she needs to, like, treat the mundane world as it is.
No. I looked at the wiki. In the books, he came back to New York 5 years after Clary's born, buys a bookstore, and starts a new mundane life. He's not a cop in the books. He's just like a bookstore owner.
Oh, well,
that whole scene with the circle members happens in the book, but it just happens in the basement of his bookstore.
Huh.
I think it was just like they wanted him to be more badass for the show, and it's like badass Soho bookstore owner I guess didn't work. So they made him a cop. Yeah, I remember now, because his apartment is, I think, over the bookstore. Because that's where he keeps a lot of his old Shadowhunter stuff, is in the basement of his bookstore. That's where he keeps his old, like, weapons and stuff.
See, and that's something, again, lost in adaptation.
Yeah.
Like, why does that have to change? And it drives me absolutely nuts when, like, movie directors do this to characters. Like, are you serious? Like, you're gonna change his career? Like, what?
Because it also opens a big thing is he disappears with them for a long time at one point in the show. They go to Idris. Did his captain never question, hey, Detective Garraway's been missing for like a week and a half at this point, and no one has been able to contact him? Does no one think this man who catches criminals for a living might be in danger?
Exactly. That was my huge issue. And Jocelyn's, like, their apartment, like, it gets absolutely destroyed, and nothing's it's just
no one calls the cops. Like,
yeah, like the police don't investigate any of it. They don't go, like, if a 15-year-old who lives with her mom in a studio apartment, like, and the apartment is, like, destroyed and you can't find her, obviously, like, the police would get involved because she's a minor.
It's also, especially in the movie, I think this happened the same way in the show too. It's not like monsters he sends to break into their apartment. It's just 2 dudes.
Exactly. Yeah. Like the two dudes morph into demon things in the TV show. At least I can't remember the movie, and I'm not going to watch it. So that's 2 hours of my life that I can't get back.
I do remember that part. It's just whatever their what's his face and what's his name. Valentine's 2 Mook Shadowhunters that he has left. He just sends them to break into their apartment.
The 2 thugs, yeah.
Yeah, and it's like no one. I guess maybe they were veiled, or I get all that hidden world terminology mixed up. Is it veiled they use for when they're invisible, or like glamour?
No, glamour.
Glamored. Okay.
Which again, I thought was so weird. Like glamour.
Every hidden world it's the veil, the mist, the glamour.
Yeah. One thing that drove me nuts was when they started, like, the mundanes. Like, okay, you're truly, like, that's another thing that draws, like, connections to Harry Potter. Like,
it's a very condescending term.
But then when they start calling them mundies, like, okay, now you're just making me think of the Dundee Awards from The Office. No. Yeah. Go get some mundies.
Like, Muggle was fine, because Muggle's like a made-up word in Harry Potter. Mundane is like a real word that means ordinary and uninteresting.
Yeah, so do the Shadowhunters just not use the word mundane?
Yeah, like they never say, this is a very mundane situation. Like,
yeah. Like, yeah. So that's another thing. Like, there's lots of little things.
It's also like, for the show, with the whole Shadowhunter society, they wanted to make them seem like, I guess, more modern and contemporary, but also didn't fully commit to that, because there's still moments where it's implied that they don't understand modern society, because they have, like, computers and cell phones and technology, but also Jace doesn't know what a restaurant reservation is.
Yeah. And, like, it makes me laugh when they're like, we need to blend in. So then they come out wearing, like, look like they're going to a leather rave.
Wearing leather outfits with
like
neck
a leather
tattoos.
Like, it's like a leather warrior cosplay rave that they're going to.
Also,
like, every time.
First episode of the show, they're going to, like, a demon club.
Pandemonium.
Oh my god. They're like, we need to blend in. So Isabeau wears, like, I get in the book she's implied as she dresses like, you know, she's the like male appeal character. She's very confident with her, but she's not wearing like a skin tight short dress to a fight. Like, she's still smart, but she wears like a platinum blonde wig with like a
wig,
super tight dress, and clearly has nothing else.
Yeah,
like no weapons or anything other than her whip. Yeah. And it's like, she's not dumb. Like, she'd still wear something that would let her fight. Like, she's clearly... in the first, like, 4 episodes or so, she's very clearly the, like, eye candy character. And I think they very quickly course correct and be like, okay, we're kind of being a bit exploitive with this character. And throwing away everything that made her an interesting character. And they do correct that a little bit. With having her basically be told by someone else that she's acting like this and needs to act more mature. So, not the most elegant way, but it works.
There's, like, a huge, like, BDSM, like, dominatrix vibe that she gets because of her whip and the fact that she always wears tight leather.
Badass.
Which, admittedly, in the books, was a bit creepy, because she's implied to be, I think, the same age as Alec?
Yeah, like, she's like
16 or 17. So, again, that's another perfect reason why they should age these characters up for a visual medium.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there'd be a lot of angry letters to Netflix if they had a show where even it was implied that characters are underage, because even if they got older actors and actresses, it'd still be questionable.
Well, a perfect example, if we're going to talk about, like, underage and, like whether or not the sexual things that they're doing are alright or not. You guys remember when Cuties was released?
But wasn't the controversy there that it was actually, like, very, very young actresses?
Yeah, And like just the fact that the whole thing was super super inappropriate, whether or not it was about like, because I remember reading something about how the initial like goal for the show was to show the world how messed up the view of young girls is, or the view of how everyone sees young girls is. But we all know that it's messed up. We don't need to see a movie about little girls shaking their asses and touching themselves to prove a point. Like, everybody knows that. So I did not. Oh, I can make a whole nother podcast about that movie, honestly.
Oh my god, yeah.
Same.
That's a podcast for another time.
Oh yeah.
Because like the other example that just came out and is a bit less controversial is Tiny Pretty Things.
I've never heard of that one.
It's a new Netflix show about, I think it's about a ballet school, and it's like a noir kind of murder mystery kind of trying to survive in a cutthroat world type show.
Oh yeah.
But it's adult actors and actresses playing, I think, like 17, 18-year-olds. It's like a high school age setting.
Well, and like that's like Riverdale.
Yeah.
Like every single.
But there's like sex scenes every like 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And like explicit. And these are implied to be minors. And it's causing a lot of friction at Netflix.
Yeah,
and their defense seems to be, oh, they're adults. Yeah, but you're not implying that.
Yeah.
No.
Like, there are places that show can't be broadcast because some places have laws saying characters need to be a certain age for things to be okay, not just actors and actresses. Because that caused problems for way back for Game of Thrones.
Oh yeah, Game of Thrones has so much.
Like, that's part of the reason they aged up some of the characters in Game of Thrones is they were like, okay, we can get away with like a 19-year-old playing a 16-year-old if they look young. But then a lot of the European countries where they were shooting were like, no, you can't film this here because you're implying an underage character is in this situation.
Oh, wow,
and we don't allow that on broadcast television. We don't allow that to be filmed. That's part of the reason that Daenerys is 18 at the start of the show and not 13
or whatever, yeah.
Also, yeah, George R. R. Martin. Yeah, not cool.
No.
Not cool. I think Daenerys turns 14 like a couple chapters into a Game of Thrones.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah. There's literally a chapter that ends with the sentence, it was the dawn of her 14th name day, which is birthdays in Westeros.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, as someone who saw the first season of the show first, before I read the book, that threw me. Because I was used to these characters being older. Because Arya is 8 when that book starts. But that's off topic.
Yeah.
What were we talking about? Oh, right. It would be like kind of like compromising if they had the characters the same age with... Again, Isabel is not... She's not sexualized in the books. She's just confident. She takes no shit.
Yeah.
She's described as being beautiful and, like, knows how to dress herself.
Yeah. Confident in her beauty.
Yeah, exactly. Like, she's confident in herself and everything, but yeah, in the TV series, she's just... Everybody is so blown out of proportion. And it makes me laugh because, like... I remember in episode 1, yeah, like, Clary... Like, Dorothea buys Clary a gift for her birthday, and it's, like, this... part half see-through top thing. So she puts it on and then she puts a sweater over top of it and like zips it up. And then literally 5 minutes later she's strutting her stuff in one of oh goodness, what's her name? I don't know why I'm just like Isabella's. She's like wearing one of Izzy's like super like skin outfits, you know, and she's just completely confident. She's like, yeah, what's up? Like, where's your sweater, Clary? Like
there's, like, kind of like the scene you mentioned earlier where Clary didn't want to eat because she was thinking about how skinny Isabel is.
Yeah, she didn't want to eat her cucumber sandwich.
I'm pretty sure there's a scene in the first book where they're at the Institute, and Clary, I think she, like, needs a new outfit because her clothes got ruined in, like, running to the Institute. And obviously Izzy's the only other girl there. So she basically is, like, gonna put something on, and she's like, hey, Izzy, can you, like, make me hot? And his other just horrible scene where she's like, hey, can you, like, make me hot like you? And she's like, oh, yeah, we'll just change everything about the way you act and dress. And then maybe boys will like you.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden, all the boys like her. Like, yeah, that's
and it's
great.
Like, Alec, Jace, and Simon are just staring, and she, like, hates it. But it's like, you literally asked her to do this, like, a chapter ago. You were like, make Jace stare at me.
Yeah, I definitely don't think that Clary is the kind of female character that I would want my kids to look up to. I don't have kids, but, like, if I did...
Maybe show Clary.
Yeah, I'd be like, okay, don't look at Clary, and definitely don't look at Bella Swan.
Oh.
I would say, honestly, I think show Clary is a better female role model than Clary.
Yeah.
Yeah, and TV show Clary, even.
Oh, sorry, did I say movie Clary?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I meant to say TV show Clary.
Yeah, like, sorry, yeah, I got confused, sorry.
Another thing is, Clary becomes, like, a badass shadow hunter very quickly in the show.
Yep, she's the chosen one, and she just knows what to do.
Like, start of, like, second season, I think, she's shown to be, like, training with Jace and Isabel, and is holding her own.
Yeah, and she's, like, a badass.
And they're like, we kind of just don't want to have her as the constant damsel in distress anymore, which is good. So we're going to make it so she can defend herself. And it's like, she seemed to be effortlessly, like, fighting demons and circle members, and is, like, as good as any other shadow hunter there. Mm-hmm. When I think Oh, go ahead.
And, like, you can take that and then compare it to all three of them who have been training since they could walk. You know, like that 1 week that Clary has had to train, and all of a sudden she's at the same level as them. Like, come on.
And then I think the only demon Clary in the books ever fights and beats completely on her own is one thing when she was spying on Jonathan. She, like, grabs, like, a ceremonial axe off the wall and beats one demon to a standstill. I don't even think she kills it. I think Jonathan has to save her. Mm-hmm. And that's, like, the only fight she wins on her own in, like, the whole books. Because she isn't trained. Like, 3 months before the book started, she was a high school student whose biggest fight had been with, like, her mom when he wouldn't let her go to the mall on Thursday night.
Yeah, I definitely liked the TV show aspect of that more, but that's a lot to do with my desire to see badass women all the time.
Oh, same girl.
Honestly, I think it does kind of make sense, because it is kind of implied Shadowhunters are born to be warriors. Mm-hmm. So it would make sense she takes to it really naturally. And she would pick up on it faster. Mm-hmm. Because also, I think the show's timeline is a bit more stretched than the books are. I think, like, a couple months pass by each season, I think, of the show. Like, I think season 3 is implied to be, like, a year and a half after, like, the show started. Mm-hmm. And I think part of that is just to account for, like, actors aging.
Yeah.
And if you take a year to film a show, you can't imply it occurred over a week, because your actors are slowly getting older and older. Especially when you have young actors, because it's very pronounced when they get older. Like, that's why when the Avatar The Last Airbender movie came out, they implied that it was going to be 3 years until Sozin's Comet arrived instead of 3 months, because they realized we can't film a movie over the span of a year or 2 years and not have our very young cast look like they've aged a year. And thank God it died in the cradle.
Oh. I refused to let my boyfriend watch it. He didn't know that they made a movie somehow, but I will protect him at all costs. I will go down fighting.
There's a reunion of that happening. There's a reunion of the show happening.
I've heard that, yeah, like, they're making... Because Netflix picked it up, and then the And the original writers dropped it because they were like, yeah, guys, we're not on board with this. But Netflix is still going through, right?
Yeah, the big thing that the original writers didn't like was that Netflix wanted to... They wanted to give it basically the Netflix treatment. They wanted to age up the cast a little bit.
And they wanted to put sex in it.
Yeah, they wanted it to be, like, more kind of, like...
Riverdale.
Yeah, pretty much. They were going to keep the main storyline, but they're like, there are a couple situations where either it's violence or sex or some kind of compromise situation that we don't really think we could put actors young enough to look like these characters' proper ages in. So I think they were going to change it to be everyone was implied that Aang was implied to be, I think, 16, and Sokka and Katara and Zuko and everyone were implied to be 18. And
if they do my boy Sokka bad,
Okay, I shouldn't get into the movie because I could honestly rant for a whole podcast about that movie.
We should make do another one.
Why are they white?
Oh. and why was the names that butchered the
Why was he on?
Sokka or not Sokka.
Sokka
or whatever. Sokka. Ugh.
Like, I'm pretty sure Katara was the only name they got right.
Yeah,
Katara and
they
Zuko.
got Yue right. Yue looked great. She was fantastic. That was the voice actor. She was great. She was the only thing good about
Yue
the
leapt off the screen. Yue leapt out of the cartoon straight into the movie. Yue was perfect.
She was, perfect.
So was Iroh. I liked the guy who played Iroh.
I hated that they called him Ero.
Yeah, they gave the wrong name, but, like, honestly, all the Fire Nation casting was actually pretty on point.
Why was Zuko East Indian, though?
They kind of lent into making the Fire Nation... They implied that the Fire Nation was kind of East Indian, like, that was their ethnicity.
I was the impression that the Airbenders were more, like, East Indian, like, Nepal kind of area, and that,
yeah,
like...
Airbenders were implied to be kind of Tibetan monks. I always took the Fire Nation to be Japan.
Yeah, like
Chinese, small island
Japan,
nation.
Korean. Yeah.
And then I took the Earth Kingdom to kind of be, for lack of a better contemporary, to be like kind of continental Europe because it was huge.
Yeah.
And then the Water Tribe, honestly, obviously is like the Inuit, like natives to the poles. And then, Water, Earth, Air, yeah. That was kind of like what I always took, but they kind of lent in and made the Fire Nation kind of East Indian for their origin, which I was okay with because at least it was consistent. At least it wasn't just Zuko was East Indian or just Iroh was East Indian. Because Zhao, I think, is also in the movie. He's also East Indian, I'm pretty sure.
I have no idea, but I just know that I didn't like it.
It was bad. Let's not skip over the fact that it was bad. Yeah. Honestly, well, if you guys are down for it, we could probably record another episode just on Avatar, Korra, and The Last Airbender movie. Which I would totally be down for.
I would definitely have to grab... I would be too, because I'm obsessed with the series. But I think I would have to have a drink or 8 if I'm going to talk about the movie.
I would drink next to me, because that would probably imply that I would have to rewatch the movie for that podcast.
Yeah.
I would get to rewatch The Last Airbender and Korra, but I would also have to watch the movie. I'd probably watch Airbender, then watch the movie, and then treat myself to some Legend of Korra afterward.
that movie.
Yeah, I was thinking of doing episodes on Percy Jackson as well.
Oh my goodness. Okay, yeah, that's a whole nother
Again, we all have the same reaction, because we think like, oh, it's a great series, and then we remember the movies exist.
Yeah.
Cool. Other than like Lord of the Rings, I can't think of a book series that I genuinely like where I also think the movies did it justice. The only one I can think of
I'm bracing for a train wreck coming up.
What's coming up?
I don't know if you've heard about Shadow and Bone and the Grisha trilogy by Leigh Bardugo.
I'm not familiar.
But they're getting a Netflix adaptation, but they're mushing the two together.
Oh.
They don't take place in the same time.
Oh, so are they going to do
one takes place before the other?
Are they going to do like the Witcher kind of thing to it, where they show everything and then you just pick up with lines and like what's happening in the plot that it's different, or?
I can only hope.
Oh god.
I have decent hopes because I really loved the books. but I also know better than to get my hopes really high, so...
Okay, honestly,
Smart.
people were complaining that The Witcher was hard to follow because of the, 3 different time period plotting they did. I didn't find it that hard to follow.
Honestly, those people were probably also on their phones while they were watching and stuff,
Yeah,
so that's on them.
If you watch the show, by the 3rd or 4th episode, you have that moment, you have that really cool moment of being like, oh, wait a minute.
Yeah,
And you
I think...
get that cool feeling of, I figured it out.
Yeah, and in I think it was, the first one, when they show Renfrey and everything, and the whole situation with how the guy's trying to capture all the people born under a full moon or whatever. And then later, when it switches to Ciri, she's talking with... Or, no, sorry, not Ciri. It switches to the witches and everything.
Jennifer.
And the one witch looks at him... Yeah, the one witch looks at him, like the guy who was the wizard who was doing all the murdering back in the day. And he's like, oh, sorry, we didn't waste our time going around killing people born under moons or whatever. And he, looks down and, because then you realize, oh, shit, that whole thing that he was doing was, wrong. He was wrong. And he murdered a bunch of innocent people. You realize that right then and there. And I didn't realize that till I watched the series, for the 3rd time, I think. Oh, that show. That's another one I could go on about, because it's got a video game and a book series.
Yep, it's got a long-running book series that might not even have ended yet. There's quite a few in that. I have the first, I think, 3 that I keep meaning to go through and read. But that's the kind of thing where you almost can't compare, because the books, the games, and the show are completely different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, everything is all mushed in together.
Because the books, or the game, is treated kind of as a sort of sequel to the book series, because they didn't want to be constrained. And then the show takes aspects of 4 different books and mashes them together to make a coherent story that involves all the characters they wanted to use.
Mm-hmm.
So, because I think it's the first book, 3rd book, and 7th book are all kind of utilized making the show. But yeah, that's got everything but a movie, which would have absolutely been terrible if they tried to make a Witcher movie.
It's just, there's too much to condense into a movie. And honestly, back to Mortal Instruments, I think that is part of the reason why the first book flopped so bad, because the girl who was directing the movie, I believe she was Canadian, and it was her very first film. That's another thing, the film was Canadian.
Yeah, it's Canadian.
So, but that's one thing. I think she really wanted to make a true adaptation of the book. So she really wanted to fit everything in there all at once, and it was just way too long, way too much, and that's why it took 2 hours. And it was just, there was way too much all at once. And honestly, I think that if they split, they made it into a TV series, that went a lot easier, because there's so much information. There are so many plot twists and different routes that you can take through the whole series. And by putting in a TV show, it's easier to flip back and forth, whereas in a movie, are you seriously going to sit there to figure out what all 6 characters are doing at the exact same time? That's just nuts. And that's what she did.
It's so hard to squish. If a book is good, that pretty much immediately implies it's too good to ever fit in one movie.
Exactly, that's such a good point.
That's, again, why I think Lord of the Rings might be the best adaptation, because it somehow takes such a long book and cuts what needs to be cut, but preserves the feel and gives you an undeniably good movie.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
Hobbit, not as much, but... Hobbit.
It was good in its own way.
But speaking of upcoming, possibly terrible Netflix adaptations...
Oh no.
Did any of you, when you were a kid, because Becky is stoked about this coming to Netflix in 10 days. Any of you watch...
Is this Winx?
Yeah, Winx Club? Because Becky loves Winx Club. I've never seen it.
I grew up without a TV, so
I'm so excited.
well, like,
They're
I had
making
TV,
like a
but it was
Riverdale-esque Winx adaptation.
what I have
Yeah.
heard, because I've seen stuff on Twitter about it. I've heard that it's super whitewashed. Not surprised.
Oh,
Yeah,
every time.
yeah, but you know, because I didn't watch that like growing up or anything, because I didn't watch it as a kid, I could watch. I'll watch the TV series or whatever, and I won't have any reference with the like old version, and then I'll have a completely unbiased opinion about the new one. I guess maybe.
That's going to be our house as well, because Becky's watching it as a die-hard fan of the original.
Ooh.
I've never seen it and know nothing about it. But I saw the trailer and recognized the title and was like, hey, wait a minute. And I sent it to her. And she's like, ah!
Well, because it is a Netflix, because it's a Netflix adaptation, she'll probably have the ice cream and the Oreos ready because she will probably be upset.
Oh, probably.
Yep.
I just saw a title for a review, and it ain't good, Chief. It was the Winx Saga isn't for Winx Club fans, and I'm not sure who else it's for. No!
That's not good.
I should also point out, for anyone listening, I know we keep complaining about whitewashing and things. Most of us are white. So we're not just saying that because we don't like white people. Most of us are white. Like, we're aware they're changing it to look like us. That's why we don't like it.
You know, don't worry. It's not the white people. I just don't like people.
I don't like it when
Yeah.
they think that a character, to make them better, means to make them white.
Oh, actually, again, a Mortal Instruments thing. I loved that. This is like, I hope this. Well, I don't know. I'm just gonna say it. I really like that they chose to put like different people of color into the TV series, because in the book and in the movie there were no people of color other than Magnus, but that was also because he was a different.
Does he
being.
count? Does he count as a person of color? He's half demon.
No, he's not even a person. So no,
He's not
I don't
a person.
think he counts. Yeah, so
He's
Magnus
a
doesn't
thing of
count.
color.
But how? Yeah, Luke was a black cop. Like
I liked
liked
that Luke was black. I felt that
Yeah,
that
and-
worked.
Yeah, and Dorothea was Spanish, I think. I can't remember. But, like, I liked that. But, yeah, everybody in the movie was white and some kind of British.
I didn't really get why Dorothea was so young in the show.
Yeah, I didn't get that either, because when I
Oh,
pictured
weird.
her, she was like in her
Like an old gypsy
60s.
woman.
Yeah, like, wearing flowy dresses all the time and curly hair.
Honestly, when I pictured Dorothea, she looked like in the movie. To be honest, she looked like movie Dorothea.
Yeah, that's a good point, yeah.
She acted like, I think, show Dorothea, but she looked like movie Dorothea.
Mm-hmm. Simon was basically the same in the movie and in the TV show. Actually, Simon auditioned to be movie Simon. Thank God he dodged that bullet.
Yeah. Simon was very well cast in both, I think.
Yes.
Simon was very...
Well, that's the thing. Like, he's the stereotypical nerdy best friend in glasses that's in love with the main female
beautiful,
character.
chosen one character.
And obviously he has the scene where he takes off his glasses and Clary's like, oh. You know?
It's so funny in the movie because it's so forced. He's like, oh, I don't need my glasses. And you can see her pretend to become interested.
Yeah, and like it's just like the opposite of when the girl lets her hair down. It's the exact opposite.
I think that's the male character equivalent, is either taking off their glasses
or
if
taking
it's
off
like,
a shirt.
I was gonna say changing into like a tighter shirt.
Yes, getting
Like when you have the nerdy friend who only wears like hoodies and loose shirts, but they, their shirt gets ruined in like a fight or running away, and they have to like borrow badass clothes from the new love interest character, and you suddenly be like, oh, they're jacked too. There's no way you didn't know that.
It's like in Supernatural when, for the first like 2 seasons, Sam just wears like hoodies and like baggy shirts all the time, and then all of a sudden, after he's been through the ringer a little bit with the demons, like beginning of season 3, like one of his first scenes, he's shirtless and like working out, and it's like, oh, he grew up.
Part of that was he was still on, I think it was Days of Our Lives, I think. And I think he needed to be not jacked for that show, but then he left that show and was able to actually get in shape for Supernatural.
Yeah, he was in Gilmore Girls.
Was
I
it
thought,
Gilmore Girls?
wasn't it? Yeah,
Maybe it was Jensen. I think Jensen was in Days of Our Lives.
Yes, he was.
Yes. But yeah, it was he was on another show at the time, and he couldn't get into jacked like superhero shape because of the other show he was on, because he needed to look like a normal dude. But then he left that show and could go into like supernatural mode. Oh my god, because that scene where he's like, my glasses, and I don't need them anymore, and he like just walks around without them. They've known each other for how many years? There's no way Clary had never seen Simon without his glasses.
Yeah, like they probably must have had sleepovers at some point, because they've been best friends since they were kids.
I think it's implied they've shared a bed before, because they were like,
yeah, exactly.
They were like, what's it called? What's the word? Platonic best friends when they were like small children.
Exactly.
There's no way this is the first time he's taken his glasses off in front of you.
Yeah, honestly. Oh, man, poor Simon. He went through so much.
Because the same thing happens when Clary wears like Isabel's tighter outfit and Simon's all staring, and I'm like, have you two never gone like swimming together?
Yeah, like, come on,
How is
guys.
this the most revealing outfit you've seen Clary in?
Yeah.
You and her regularly go to Luke's farm that has a lake. You must have gone swimming at some point.
Yeah.
It's shoehorn scenes like that never work when you give it more than like 20 seconds of thought that this is no way the first time this has happened.
Yeah, and like I guess that kind of goes back to like what I said at the beginning. Like, this is the comfort food of young adult urban fiction. Like, it's fantasy. I mean, like scenes like that. Like, as much as everybody says that they hate them, everybody loves it when like the best friend who's in love with the other best friend. Like, it's a guilty pleasure.
I was rooting for Simon. I'll be honest. I was rooting for Simon. Simon is my favorite character.
I definitely had a little crush on him.
Like, throughout the whole series, Simon is my favorite character.
Oh yeah, he's so cute.
Like, who was the other guy who was in, like, when Sebastian, like air quotes Sebastian, was introduced, the first few chapters where we met him, I liked him when he was still pretending to be Sebastian. I thought he was like cool and roguish. But obviously, if you like him by the end of that book, you're a monster.
I mean, like, I respect his game. I respect his game, but I don't like him.
Don't like him.
I hate the player, not the game.
Okay, this might be a question that only maybe Nico could answer, because I have not gone back and read the, for lack of a better term, like spin-off novels or like supplementary novels, like Bane Chronicles.
Yeah, I haven't touched those.
And I think there's a series about the new female Shadowhunter you meet in like book 4, who's got the sword Kartana. I think there's a series about her.
The Dark Artifices.
Yeah. Do you ever? Because they have like the photo of the real Sebastian Verloc, and obviously you don't in the show because they find his body. But I'll get back to that in a second. Do you ever in the books meet or find out what happened to the real Sebastian Verloc? Or is he just implied to be dead?
I'm pretty sure we do. If I'm recalling correctly, you do figure out what happened in the end.
Okay. Because that always bugged me that, like, they introduced this dangling plot thread of, like, oh, this is what my cousin Sebastian actually looks like. And then it's never addressed. It's because I always figured that after that point they would meet up with him and he would because if I was him, I'd want revenge for this guy who attacked people like my family pretending to be me. You figured he'd be hot for revenge, but like you used my name to murder people, but then you just never meet him. And it kind of plays in because in the show obviously he's like shape changing to look like him, so eventually Jace, Isabel, and Clary find his body. And that moment also just highlights for me how quickly Clary became like a full-on Shadowhunter. Because Jace gives like the quick Shadowhunter like last rites. And Clary joins in, knowing instinctively what to say. And I'm like, when did you sit down and have that lesson? Like, I get the teaching her how to fight to protect herself. Why did you sit down and be like, okay, if we find the body of a dead shadow hunter, I'm going to say this phrase in Latin. I think it was Latin. And you're going to respond in English with this. It's important that you know this. Like, they start just treating Clary like she went through all the schooling that the other shadow hunters have. Because at a couple points, she starts, like, quoting Idrin history and, like, Shadowhunter lore about their people to contribute to, like, conversations. And I'm like, when did you stop and learn all this?
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's like the writers forgot that she grew up in New York until a couple months ago. Oh, man.
Okay, I do need to amend what I said. I don't think there's much about the real Sebastian in the Dark Artifices. I was thinking more along the lines of Jonathan.
Yeah, like the real Sebastian is killed by Jonathan, so Jonathan can take over Sebastian's body. And then when Clary stabs him, like it drains out the blood, and then there's a little bit of good in him, and that's like, but then he dies, does he not? Like, I thought that there just wasn't enough good left in him, and then he dies.
Everything you said is true, but it's a bit different because it's easy to get confused because the show implies that literally he was changing himself to look like Sebastian Verloc, and he killed the real one to take his place.
Yeah.
In the book, it's just he shows up to Eileen in Idris and says he's Sebastian Verloc, who she hasn't seen, I think, like, either she's never met him or hasn't seen him since they were, like, very, very small kids.
Yeah.
And just says, I'm your cousin, says a few facts about his life, and they believe him. But then eventually they find, like, a photo of Sebastian, and it's like, oh, that's clearly not the person we were talking to. Like, so Sebastian Verloc is not related to what happened. And at the end of the series, when she stabs him with basically what she's made the new sword of Raphael, it drains all of the demon blood and demonic energy out of him. But the person there is still, it's basically Jonathan Christopher Morgenstern if he had been raised as a normal kid and didn't have the demon blood. That's why he turns good temporarily.
And then he just kind of withers.
He dies in Clary's arms. Like,
yeah.
But I'm pretty sure, I think they bring his body back and give him, like, Shadowhunter last rites.
Do they?
I think they give him a proper Shadowhunter funeral. They Darth Vader him a little bit. They take his body back and give him, like, good guy last rites that he does not deserve.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, he very much does not deserve to be burnt in, like, the Idris, like, graveyard, considering he put, like, 300 of those people in that graveyard.
Exactly.
Like, how would you feel if you lost, like, your brother or your mother or someone in this war, and you're there visiting the crypt, and, like, 3 crypts over is the asshole who caused all this?
Like, that'd be like burying Voldemort beside Lily and James.
Or it's like Darth Vader's Force Ghost showing up next to Yoda and Obi-Wan.
Oh
like,
my
motherfucker,
God.
you killed basically both of those people.
Yeah.
Why are they okay with this?
Yeah, like all the younglings, like,
He gets to the Force and he's just surrounded by youngling Force Ghosts gonna beat him up.
Yeah.
Oh.
Oh, man. The Infernal Devices, which is a trilogy that comes before the Mortal Instruments,
Ooh, yeah,
is going to be adapted to
that's
the
like
movie, too.
That's the Victorian era one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I started reading that one because I definitely have it, but I think I just got bored. Because that's the other thing, like, her writing style is so consistent over every single book that she writes that they all mush together into the same thing. And part of me wonders if that's why she doesn't stray away from, like, the universe that she's created.
That's true, because honestly, I think every Cassandra Clare book is this universe.
Yeah, like, they're literally all of the writing seems the same. Every single character seems like a variation of Clary, Jace, Simon, and Izzy. And I guess to an extent, I can't think of his name. Brother, Alec.
Alec, yeah. It feels like every time she starts a new series in like a new setting, she has to find her
a variation
strong
of them.
female protagonist, her love interest, her love interest's family, her nerdy friend.
Well, and that's the thing, like, she
and
totally
Magnus.
places her... Yeah, and Magnus.
Magnus is always there.
Yeah, there has to be some kind of super powerful, super gay wizard. Like, has to.
Not even like, has to be a super powerful, super gay wizard. It's just always Magnus.
Yes, he just likes... It's
Magnus
a wizard.
over
Yeah, not even gay. Just a wizard that is always horny and will have sex with anything, anyone, anytime, anywhere. Yeah.
He will absolutely have sex with that 17-year-old.
Yeah. That printer over there is looking real good. Yeah, exactly. But, like, literally every single book that she releases sounds like it has the same writing style, writing voice. Like, every character has the same voice. And part of me thinks that it's because Cassandra Clare inserts herself into the she creates characters as, like, main characters at least, as a reflection of herself. That's why they're always the same generic, female lead with pretty hair.
I very much agree that I think Cassandra Clare sees herself in the Clary kind of archetype.
Mm-hmm.
Because Cassandra Clare is not, like, that much older than us. I think Cassandra Clare's only, like, in her early 30s.
Probably. Hold on, I'll take
So I think she was in her, like, early or mid-20s when these books were coming out.
I think she's fairly young.
She's 47, actually.
She's 47?
Yeah, her real name is Judith Lewis.
What?
What?
Yeah, she was born in 1973 in Iran.
Oh,
what?
That's cool.
Are you sure? This feels fake.
Google it.
Oh my god.
I mean, I'm on Wikipedia, so.
This is too wild.
And she's definitely not what I pictured her as, because I've seen her picture on, like, the back of books, and it does not look like her. Her name is Judith.
I think it might be an old photo on the back of books.
Oh, probably. Well,
it's the book it's the photo she took when she wrote City of Bones, and she just used it the whole time.
Honestly, yeah, that's what it looks like.
So City of Bones was 2007, so she would have been 33 when City of Bones came out.
And here's the other thing, like...
Wait, what is Chains of Iron?
Probably... Oh, you know what? I bet you I could guess the plot.
It takes place between the Infernal Devices and the Mortal Instruments.
Okay. I was gonna say it's Cordelia.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I just found a cool list. Hold on. Yeah, so Cassandra Clare books, they're basically all the same, but...
Oh, this is Jace's mom and dad. Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, wow, yeah.
It's that generation.
Oh my gosh, she has so many books that are all from the same, like, universe that, like, what we're talking about. So, if you want to read all of her books in order, because they all tell a story about the same thing, straight up, it's, so first, City of Bones, City of Ashes, City of Glass, and then The Red Scrolls of Magic, which is part of the Eldest Curses, part 1. And then the Infernal Devices, so Clockwork Angel, Clockwork Prince, Clockwork Princess. And then the Mortal Instruments, part 2, City of Fallen Angels, City of Lost Souls, and then City of Heavenly Fire. And then after that is the Bane Chronicles, all of them. And then Tales from the Shadowhunter Academy. And then, finally, the Eldest Curses, part 2, which is the Lost Book of the White. And then you move on to the Dark Artifices. And it just goes on and on and on and on and on, honestly. Like, but here's the thing, like, I bet I could tell you what happens in every single one of those books.
It's probably the same plot every time.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and that's what I mean about how she's comfort food of, like,
you go
fantasy,
in knowing what
fiction.
to expect.
Exactly. Like, you don't read this book when you want to, like, have your heart pounding and you have to put the book down because you have to tell someone how freaking crazy this is. No, for her books, you sit there, you read them, and you go, yes. Like, oh, you're going to chop off his head in 3, 2, 1? Yes.
Like,
you know?
If you pick up a Cassandra Clare book for the same reason you put reruns of The Office on in the background.
Oh, that is so good, yes.
Because you want to feel good.
Mm-hmm.
You want the good guys to win, you want the bad guys to be beat, You want redemption
You
for
want
the
a
people
little
you like, and you want the people you don't like to get comeuppance. Like, you want a win.
It's comforting. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. That was such a good analogy comparing it to The Office, because yeah, I totally do that.
Like, I should point out that when we say her books all feel the same and all of her books are in the same universe, we're not strictly negging on her for putting all of her books in the same universe. There's something to be said for writing a huge, expansive universe.
If you are dedicated enough to keep track about what happens in each of those books and put it all in the same universe, like, all that is great. Good job.
Because her continuity is pretty good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like all the characters have their own story. All of them have their own, like, they are developed characters, but it's just they're all based off of the same archetype.
Yeah. But even at that point, if you dropped Clary into, like, Clockwork Prince and never named her, you'd still be able to tell that was Clary.
Oh, yeah.
She develops them enough to make them unique, but they still have an archetype.
Mm-hmm. They're generic, but they have their own, like, details to them. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Compare that to someone like Brandon Sanderson. I don't know if either of you are familiar. He also writes...
I just got a book by him.
He just got what?
I just picked up, Way of Kings.
Oh, yes. Like, the way you felt when I started reading Mortal Instruments is how I feel that you're reading Way of Kings now. Because that's my favorite book series of all time. And
have you guys read the Mistborn series?
I have. I have read every single one of Brandon Sanderson's books, not counting like his children's literature.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I read his young adult stuff, like Mistborn and Skyward, but I didn't go back and read, like, Alcatraz versus the Evil Librarians and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I really liked Mistborn. Yeah, that was good.
Mistborn's really good. I should admit, I guess I just lied. I haven't read the Wax and Wayne trilogy yet.
How dare you?
Yeah, how dare I make the claim to be a true Brandon Sanderson fan, and I haven't read Cowboys versus Mistborn. But yeah, like, the Stormlight Archive, which is Way of Kings, is my favorite series, and book 3 of that, Oathbringer, is actually my favorite novel of all time. Like, it beats out, like, Lord of the Rings, Return of the King, and, like, The Eye of the World and everything as... if I could only reread one book the rest of my life, I would go back to Oathbringer over and over again. Just because it's not even the end of a series, but it makes progression in the main plot lines feel like solving a riddle and unraveling this huge and getting to a huge resolution, but it all serves as both resolutions and building up to later books. And it has a chapter that pays off plotting and building for the entire first 2 books. Because that book series is full of what I call, like, comeuppance moments. Where you have spent hours and hours and thousands of pages learning to hate or love characters, and you get several deserved moments of just a pin drops, and everything unravels very quickly, and you finally get that cathartic moment of people finding out what someone did, or someone getting to do something, but they never feel forced or too common.
Nice.
And book 4 of that series actually just came out. Rhythm of War just came out on, like, I think November 20th of 2020. After, like, 5 years in development. So read them slowly, because it's going to be, like, 7 until the next one.
Well, that kind of makes me think, like, when you compare that narrative to The City of Bones, and how, because you said, yeah, like, you have to, like, you read and it takes so long to get all this information and stuff. In City of Bones, you literally learn the plot of the whole entire series in, like, the first 3 chapters. You learn literally everything. And I feel like that, like, yes, it sets it up, but now it's so drawn out. We all know what you're looking for and everything. Like, at least make it a little interesting, like put a little bit of anticipation into it, right?
It also, like, I'm not, because it kind of, she does that, like, she implies it really quickly, I think maybe as a consequence of, if you took all 3 of the first half of Mortal Instruments and squished them together, and changed the font size to be smaller to fit more on each page, you might get the same length in sheer volume of pages as The Way of Kings.
Yes.
Like, that movie, I think, is 1,800 pages long, and I'm talking like the copy I have, which is the small print, big hardcover, I think is 1,800 pages long.
Mm-hmm.
And Oathbringer is 3,300 pages long. Like,
Yeah,
these are
and
stupidly long books, whereas Mortal Instruments books you could really hammer out in a day if you were dedicated.
yeah, and I think like it's like City of Bones just eventually, like, or I guess Mortal Instruments, the series. Again, I think the issue why I liked the first 2-3 novels more than I liked the last 3 was because, like, yeah, they had everything set up from the beginning, and then I think I probably just got bored of waiting for some, like, further plan that they planned out in book 1, chapter 6. I've been waiting for 3 books, like, for you guys to take that plan and put it into action, and they still haven't. The only thing that they've done was figure out where the cup is. Like, you know, like, I think that was probably why I had such a struggle to get into the later books, because I felt like they had already established what was going to happen in the first few books.
I will say, she did one slow burn thing in the first half of that series that I think worked, and that was Hodge.
Yes.
How
Hodge.
he vanishes and reappears in book 3, and you don't even really pick up on who he is until he gets out.
And then he fucks everything up.
Yeah. Well, no, he both fucks it up and allows it to finish, because he reveals, I think he reveals where the mortal mirror is.
Yes, yeah.
But Valentine, I think, already knew that.
Mm-hmm.
And he just lets the heroes know where that is.
Yeah.
And then obviously Clary and Jace go there. And I do love how in the books it's kind of poetic, because, like, what's Raziel or...
Raziel?
Raziel? Is that the angel's name? I always want to call him Raphael for some reason.
I think it's Raziel. Just call him that.
Yeah. Raziel. Like, he summons Raziel, and Raziel, he's like, hey, you killed my brother. Like, you killed, Ithuriel. And he kills Valentine. Like, he directly intervenes and strikes him down. And that, I think, worked really well, because Valentine had been working this whole time to summon him, and gets his comeuppance from him. But I like how in the show, Clary just fucking stabs him. Sorry for my language, but I'll probably bleep that. But no, it's like, girl, I get he's bad, but you do know that's your dad, right? Like, at that point in the show, I think that's Clary's only living family.
I found it very interesting how it was so anticlimactic when, she just does it. And then in the book, there's such a huge build-up, and there's dialogue, and there's emotion, and then in the
great
TV show, just
flaming arrow, and, like, burns through his heart. And he dies with, like, this look of shock, realizing that his, like, forefather has done this. That's his ancestor, too. Mm-hmm. Just as much as it's any other Shadowhunters.
Yeah, and then the TV shows just stepped up.
And it was actually shocking reading that, because you're like, okay, you didn't expect him to do that to essentially one of his children.
Mm-hmm.
But then it's just like, hey, I grabbed this knife off the ground. Stab.
Yeah, basically.
It's just the main villain for this long, and he's taken out by Claire with a pocket knife.
Yeah, who barely ever fights. Yeah, she kills the one demon, like, in book 3 or whatever. But
Also,
and like in the movie, she doesn't fight at all.
no, she
Like,
uses
she freezes
ruins a
them.
couple times,
Yeah, like
and she pulls the cup out of a card.
yeah, and then like when they're having the big showdown at the end, she's literally just standing off to the side, just like no, and just watching them. Like, do something. You can punch someone in the face. Like, just just move, run. If you're just gonna stand there, like, go away. Go
You
away.
don't need
If
to
you're not
be in the
involved
shot.
fight, yeah, if you're not involved in the fight, just leave.
Oh, I think last thing I kind of want to touch on that, you know, bit of a downer ending this popped in my head when you were mentioning like fights, because I remembered one other fight she got into, which was the like cultists. When she's doing investigations in one book, she finds like that cult worshipping a demon. I forget the implication. The subplots got weird in the later books. But thinking back at how it was that fight and the fight where Jonathan rescues her, which made me remember the other really unfortunate Jonathan kind of subplot in the later books that I'm very happy the show decided to kind of just gloss over. And kind of sensitive content warning for anyone listening. If you've read them and you know what I'm about to say, and it bothers you, you may not want to listen, because I will be using a couple terms that might make you uncomfortable, but I'm really glad they didn't go the whole kind of creepy incest rapey vibe coming off Jonathan that he has in the books.
Yeah. And again, like, that's just something that Cassandra Clare has a weird forbidden thing for. Like, she's got this weird thing for Luke and Leia. Like, she roots for them in some weird way. Like, for them to, you know? Like, again, going back to, like, her earlier writings, like, apparently all of her fan fictions had weird incest shit in them.
Quick pause for 1 second. I'll edit this part out, but I realized that I left my short ribs in the oven. I'll be right back.
Okay.
Oh no.
Don't burn the house. So how did you meet Reed?
I met him through a mutual friend who used to be my roommate.
Oh, cool. Reed and I, we were both in a play in university, but like it was really weird because it was like separated into smaller plays, and we were in like it was one giant play separated into smaller plays, and I was in one and he was in a different one. So yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was really weird. It was like, if you ask Reed about it, he'll tell you all about it, but it was about like sex and stuff, and it was weird. Definitely one of the weirder university things that I have ever done in my life.
Interesting. Huh.
Yeah, it was strange. I can't remember what his was. I think he was doing something with this girl that played cards or something, and she was actually dead or something. I can't remember.
Oh, that's eerie.
Yeah, and mine was like, I don't know, I was like, this guy was actually, in the end you find out he's dreaming, but I was his girlfriend, and I was hitting on a French waitress. It was weird. Yeah.
Okay,
and
I'm
like,
back.
Oh, hey, I was just telling him about that weird sex play that we were in. Remember that?
Oh, Intersections?
Yes.
You were the woman strapped to the spider's web, right?
Pardon?
Weren't you the one strapped to the spider's web?
Oh, no, thank God, no, that was Erica.
That was Erica.
Yes, that was Erica. No, I was the one where, like, at the end you find out it was a dream. And, like, I was hitting on, like, Nadine. Like, I was a lesbian.
Ah, right.
Yes, that really weird one. Weird times.
My favorite moment of that play wasn't even part of the play. It was backstage, where I was sitting there, and across from me was the what was his name? Did you see Boy? Did you see Boy? The other play that.
Oh, yeah.
The guy who played the drug dealer.
Charlie?
No, Charlie was the main character. The other male character you meet.
I can see the face. I can see his face. Yeah.
The part he played in Intersections. He was the bee.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what his name was.
But anyway, I was sitting across from him, just like, you know, hiding back in the tiny backstage there.
Oh, yeah, worst.
And, because Erica had 2 parts. Erica was in 2 different little sections. So, Erica came in from one of hers, and it was between her other one, so she had to get changed. So I'm just looking at the other dude and talking to, like, Abby, just, like, you know, looking in that direction. And I see that he's staring to the left. So I'm like, what's going on over there? So I turn and Erica's getting changed, and I'm just like, I just looked forward and reached over and turned his head to look at me, and shook my head, and he just looked down.
That's so funny. Oh.
And it was it felt like a moment out of a sitcom, and I'm just like,
That's so funny.
oh, that was funny.
Anyways, okay, so what was the topic again? We were talking about...
The weird rapey vibe coming off of Jonathan.
Right. Weird rapey vibes from Jonathan.
Which I'm so glad was confined to the books.
Well, honestly, it kind of almost makes me think, like, this is just me pulling thoughts out of air, but, like, again, how in all of her writing, apparently, she has this weird thing with incest, and how she puts herself into the main character, like, she puts a piece of herself into the main character. Well, both of the main characters' brothers, like, both of the supposed brothers, like, want to have this weird incestual relationship with her, so that makes me think, like, does Cassandra Clare have a weird, like, kink for incest for herself? Like, does she want her brother?
So.
Should we be looking at Cassandra Clare and her brother?
Makes sense.
Like, it seriously does make sense. Like, she's manifesting it in her novels because she wants it IRL. Like, I don't know.
It's a bit more forgivable with Jace. At least he didn't know at first. Like, at first, he developed feelings, found out he might be her brother, tried to push them away, and then only acted on them when he learned he wasn't related to her.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think it's, if I remember correctly, it's 2 different moments. We learn they're not related, but then at a different point, we learn that Jace is a Herondale. I don't think it's the same moment.
No, because don't they, like, at first, they're like, yeah, no, we're not related, obviously, who would think that? And then it's, oh shit, we are related. And then I might just be, like, my memory might just be slipping, but is there not a part where they think, oh, maybe we aren't related, we're not sure, but there's a chance, and then they hook up, even though they aren't positive? Like, I'm 90% sure that happens. Like, there's, like, we might not be related, but... So, like, let's have sex because there's a chance.
I do know, this is one thing I do remember, this, draw your own conclusion as to why this sticks in my head, but I do know that the only time they have sex in the first 6 books is book 6. Like, end of book 6. In the, like, there is a name for the demon dimension, I just don't remember what it was. It's basically hell. But it's in hell. And they have the moment of, like, we might die tomorrow attacking the castle, so, you know, we might as well sneak off into an underground lake and bang.
Yeah.
And it's heavily implied that I think Simon and Isabel also snuck off and banged. And it's just Alec alone, like, where'd everybody go? Guys? Larry? Jace? It's just him around. I imagine him around the campfire, like, guys? Nobody cares about Alec.
Apparently.
Nobody's like, hey, how you doing, Alec? Alec, shoot this. Alec, call your boyfriend. Alec gets the short end of the stick.
Yeah, basically.
Gets the short end of the stick a lot. I think he walks in on Simon and Izzy like 4 times in that book series.
That poor man.
That poor man.
Yeah.
He's like, why does this keep happening? They're like, I don't know, you could learn to fucking knock. Ah, damn it. You could learn to knock.
Pretty much.
Pretty much. Well, we are approaching 2 hours. Should we wrap up?
I guess so.
I could
really fun.
talk for 6 hours about Mortal Instruments, but that was really fun.
Yeah, we went on a few tangents,
was.
and it's
Few
fun.
tangents,
I like
but they
this
work.
kind of stuff. Yeah, it's great.
Thank you all for listening. Stick around. I'll make an announcement on some platform about when the next one might be coming. Till then, thanks. See you later. Read Mortal Instruments. Book series, totally worth it. And if you're looking for popcorn entertainment, watch the Netflix show. If you want to cringe and hate yourself, I guess watch the movie. It's free on YouTube. At least it won't cost you money to see it. It's about the only praise I can give it. Alright, I'm Reed.
I'm Caddy.
I'm Nico.
Good night, everyone.